Anyone can tell you that the difference between a good military briefing and a not-so-good briefing is organization. This is one area in which the experts all agree.
I find I learn a lot more from people who are well organized. I've had a lot of experience listening to lectures at the Air War College, at the NCO academies, at the different schools here at Maxwell, and I find I learn more from people when I can follow their organization.
Good organization is key. When you give a speech, you have just so much time. You can't waste your time and your audience's time by organizing yourself as the speech continues. When you go in there, you have to know what you want to do. It's very, very critical to giving a good speech. When you have good organization, the speech almost speaks itself. It really does. So make sure you have your points lined up, A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, or whatever is comfortable with you, but you've got to have good organization. It's basic to any good speech. Without it, the speech doesn't fly. Don't get up there and speak off the top of your head.
As an experienced briefer, Sergeant Davis understands the importance of good organization. He makes a habit of preparing well before each briefing that he gives. Today, he's preparing an information briefing for international students who have just arrived at the Defense Language Institute on Lackland Air Force Base. Since it's the first time he'll give this particular briefing, Sergeant Davis wants to make sure everything runs smoothly. In preparing for the briefing, he's gone through a number of organizational steps. He's begun by first analyzing the situation. In doing this, he has first found out exactly who his audience is and how much information they already have about his subject. He knows that the students are new to the Defense Language Institute and that none of them have ever been here before. He has also found that some of the students do not know very much English, but that others speak English quite well.
Every time I speak to a group, I try to think, am I talking to a bunch of 23-year-olds that just got out of college, or a bunch of 18-year-olds, or a bunch of people who have been around a long time, whether they be NCOs or whether they be officers? People think differently when they're 45 than they do at 25. We may never change very much, but we have different ways of looking at things. We've had a lot more experience as we get older. I find there's a lot of difference if you're talking to people who are senior citizens or talking to people who are very junior. Always knowing your audience, knowing what's important to them, knowing what the words will mean to them. You see, effective communication isn't what do the words mean to me. Effective communication comes down to knowing what they mean to the other people.
Next, Sergeant Davis has thought about the purpose for this briefing. He knows that he needs to provide the audience with information about himself and the school. Finally, Sergeant Davis has found out where he will give the briefing and how much time he will have to deliver it. Based on this information, he'll make decisions about the visual aids and graphics he'll use. Now that he has thought about his audience, his purpose, and how much time he'll have to give the briefing, Sergeant Davis can begin to work on the briefing itself.
I think the first thing a military briefer should do is prepare. And the first part of preparation is knowing why, what you've been asked to give a presentation or briefing on. Know what question it is that you're there to answer. Do your homework about the subject. Do your homework about the audience. Know your audience so you can deliver the right message. And then in the Army we have an adage, if you're going to go give a presentation, tell them what you're going to say. Tell them, and then tell them what you've said. And it sounds simple, but in fact that's a good method of giving any kind of presentation. You let your audience know where you're going. It spends the most of your time delivering the message, and then you come back again and conclude and tell them what you've said. So I think know your audience, know your topic, deliver a concise, clear presentation, and I think you'll win every time.
In constructing his briefing, Sergeant Davis must do several things. First, he'll collect the material he'll use in his briefing. Once he has collected the necessary materials, he must decide on the main points he'll concentrate on. For each of his key points, he then decides upon useful supporting information. Once he's decided on his main points and supporting information, Sergeant Davis can begin to organize his thoughts. He knows that effective briefings begin with effective introductions, and that good introductions contain the following elements: attention, motivation, purpose, and overview. He will begin by introducing himself and his topic.
I'm Sergeant Davis, and I'm your military training leader.
His introduction will gain the audience's attention and motivate them to listen. Then, after introducing himself and his topic, Sergeant Davis will state his purpose and give an overview of the information he will present.
And it ends at
The body of his
2100 hours
briefing
at
will
night,
be
which is 9
simple
o'clock at
and will
night.
focus on the
So,
main points.
Let's say,
It will
you're too
include
sick to
all
sign out.
necessary
You're too sick to come to
facts.
my office. The first thing-
At the conclusion of his briefing, Sergeant Davis will summarize the important information, re-motivate his audience to remember his message, and provide closure so that the audience will know that the briefing is over.
And that concludes the briefing. Are there any questions?
Now that he has organized his briefing, Sergeant Davis will determine what visual aids he will need.
The visual aids are very, very important. The reason is very, very simple. Many of us are visual learners. Many of us are auditory learners. Those of us who are visual learners learn by seeing pictures, photographs, charts, etc. Those of us who are auditory learners learn through our ears. We listen to the dialogue, we listen to tape, we listen to whatever you might have to offer. You have to be able to appeal to both types of people. People who learn through their eyes, people who learn through their ears. If you give a presentation and all you've got are words, no pictures, no charts, nothing, you're going to lose a lot of people. You have to have something people can look at. Most especially in this age of TV. Everybody watches TV. They're accustomed to seeing audio visual aids, most especially visual aids. So if you get up to give a speech nowadays and all you have is talk from your mouth, it's not going to work. You have to have something people can look at. I don't care if it's a map, a picture, a chart, a diagram, something people can look at. They have to have something they can see. The audio learners, the visual learners. We have lots and lots of visual learners out there, and we've got to appeal to them.
Visual aids are used to focus the audience's attention on the message. They should be simple and readable and should reinforce the verbal message. Visual aids should not contain too much information, nor should they repeat exactly what's being stated by the speaker. The audience will not want to listen to the briefing if they can read it instead.
I think visual aids are very important. However, I think sometimes they're overused. I've seen some PowerPoint presentations recently where the whole briefing is on the PowerPoint presentation. So I read it, and then I pretty much tune out the speaker because he's not saying anything else that's already not visible to me. So I think visual aids need to enhance what you're saying, but not dominate what you're saying. So perhaps a picture or visual would work with maybe some words that are slightly different than what you're saying. But I think sometimes lately with all the technology we have that we tend to let the computer do all the work and we just kind of are a talking head. But that's not the way it should be, I think. I think that the person is the most important thing. So visual aids need to enhance what you're saying, but not take over.
Sergeant Davis has decided on several concise visual aids, and he is now ready to practice his briefing. He will rehearse several times, using his visual aids and making sure he is very familiar with the information he will present.
3 words: rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. And then rehearse, rehearse, rehearse again. Never give a speech or say you're going to talk to a big crowd or a big audience. Don't ever give it cold. Walk into that room when there's no one there and give the speech. Don't ever walk into a room and think the public address system is going to work. The podium will be at the correct level. The lighting will be correct. If you do, none of that will work and your speech will be a disaster.
Sergeant Davis's briefing is ready to go. Before he delivers it, the final thing he needs to do is check his appearance.
For military briefers, first and utmost is look military. Before you say your first word, before you say your good morning, your good afternoon, a military audience has already judged you. Your uniform or whatever you're wearing must be 100% squared away. A good-looking haircut and a good posture. Like I said, before you say your first good morning, you are judged, are you a good military speaker, from a military standpoint. Secondly, be prepared, know your subject matter, 100% top to bottom. And lastly, I've mentioned it in the past, rehearse, rehearse, and then when you think you're done, rehearse one more time.
Good organization is critical to a good, successful speech, briefing, whatever you're trying to communicate to your audience. The organization should be practiced enough. The elements of the speech or briefing should be brought together successfully enough that it seems to be a very natural occurrence. It should be like breathing for the person doing the briefing. The 4 words I would describe, or I would use to exemplify good organization are make it look easy.
Sergeant Davis has certainly made it look easy, and he has done exactly what he set out to do. He has analyzed his situation, he has organized his information, he has prepared well, and he has delivered a very effective briefing.